Peru, demonstrations against police repression by the Dina Boluarte government continue. In El Salvador, social movements march to commemorate the 31st anniversary of the signing of the peace accords. And in Russia, President Vladimir Putin said the economy's performance has exceeded the government's expectations. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Saturday in Peru, hundreds marched through Lima once again demanding the resignation of President Dina Boluarte and protesting for the nearly 50 Peruvians who have been killed by police and military forces at demonstrations in the past weeks. Hundreds of Peruvians gathered at the capital city to march from the historical center to the Miraflores district. Demonstrators set off from the downtown San Martin Square with signs calling for the president's resignation, the holding of early elections for 2023, and an end to repression. Surrounded by dozens of shielded police officers, they marched towards the Kennedy Park in the Miraflores districts. Mobilizations from other provinces within the country are expected to arrive in Lima in the next few days. Meanwhile, Peruvian citizens announced that on Saturday morning, close to 40 criminals violently entered the headquarters of the Agora Popular Organization and the Democracia Directa party in downtown Lima. According to local media, a far-right shock group raided and vandalized the facilities of both organizations, destroying press equipment, computers, books, and furniture, as well as violently evicting those who were on the site through the use of firearms. Agora Popular denounced that police forces did not respond accordingly, despite the fact that the attack was in a central area of the city and only a few minutes away from at least 3 police stations. Civilians have qualified the event as an act of intimidation by the far-right sectors. In response to the people's demand for President Dina Boluarte's resignation, citizens have reported the violent attacks from the site and urged authorities to take action.
I am here. They have kidnapped several Peruvians there. I have a sister who is a graduate and they have beaten her and her son. They have massacred her. The only thing the police is doing is to get the people to leave so that the criminals can get out. 2 police cars have just passed by. We've told them what was happening, but they've said that it's not their business and they left. The police is not doing anything. They have orders not to help. There are hostages in there. Please do something.
I want to denounce that the police of Alfonso Ugarte have not acted immediately as they did last time when they captured many of them and seized weapons, and they are in jail. Now more than 6 hours have passed and the police have not come, and they have only captured 5. Inside there are 30 delinquents, and now my comrades are kidnapped inside. Their life is at risk, sir. Why don't the police intervene now? Why don't they intervene? They are kidnapped. Please, Mr. Arriola, Madam President of the Judiciary, please act.
In Peru, 71% of the population rejects the government of Dina Boluarte, according to figures from the Institute of Peruvian Studies. According to its latest survey, President Dina Boluarte and the Congress are highly disapproved by citizens in the country, and most of them believe that law enforcement have used excessive force in handling of the protests against the government and parliament. The study consulted the population and determined that approximately 71% of Peruvians disapprove of the way in which Boluarte is conducting her government. On the other hand, 88% of the population disapproves of Congress' performance, while only 9% approves it. Brazilian President Luis Inácio da Silva dismisses the top executive of Empresa Brasileira de Comunicação responsible for the government's media. The media company will now be run by journalist Carolina Costa, a career civil servant who served as employee representative on the state-owned company's board of directors. The new top official will have the mission of leading the transition process for the new management to be implemented in next month. According to media reports, the unexpected replacement of the company executive arose as a result of the way the media entity reported the invasion and vandalism perpetrated on January 8th by radical followers of the defeated President Jair Bolsonaro. The government of Honduras declared Saturday a health emergency for 90 days in the entire territory due to the presence of avian influenza. The head of the Secretariat of Agriculture and Livestock, Laura Suazo, He informed in a statement to the press that experts confirmed 123 cases of avian influenza in pelicans, of which 109 were found dead. The official pointed out that the emergency declaration has a preventive control and elimination character. She also stressed that this is a necessary step to guarantee that the country is not affected by this disease and urged the population to avoid contact with birds that may have died from it. Suazo added the emergency, which has also been adopted by Mexico, Panama and Chile, could be extended if necessary. During an interview for teleSUR 7 years after her arrest, indigenous leader Milagros Sala pointed out that her arrest was prepared to dismiss those who worked to help the unemployed Argentinians after the privatizations of the 90s in the country.
My arrest wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a question of Morales coming up with it because he had political problems with me. It was all a setup, because they had to overthrow the organization that had worked very hard and had raised the comrades who had been left without work in 2001 and in the 90s. Let's not forget that at that time companies were privatized, many state companies were left in the street, railroads were also dismantled, and at that time there was no political party. Not even the state had taken care of the unemployed.
The indigenous leader Milagros Sala assured that although she did not want the pardon a year ago, she now dreams of being held accountable before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, since the regular justice system in Argentina failed to give her this opportunity.
Look, a year ago I didn't want a pardon, and today I would like a pardon. Do you know why? Because I dream of one day sitting in front of the Inter-American Court and being held accountable. I want to give an account. I want to account for what they allegedly tell me I have stolen. I want to give an account to the people. Yes, because unfortunately with the justice that some of us have believed in, it didn't happen.
The indigenous leader also denounced the toll her arrest had on her family.
My family has been destroyed. My husband is very sick. Well, my son is also very sick. My grandson is still suffering the consequences of this, of my detention. They completely disarmed my family. And they also disarmed the Tupac, but nevertheless, our Tupac comrades resisted these 7 years, and they are still marching. Today, they are still marching in the streets of Jujuy, despite the fact that many believed that just because they had me, the Tupac was going to disappear.
The Argentine government denounced the breach by the International Monetary Fund of its commitment to review the cost of the conflict in Ukraine for the South American country. Argentina's Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, believes that the IMF violates its obligations to the South American country. Argentina closed 2022 with a 94.8% inflation rate, one of the highest in the last 32 years. Massa mentioned that Argentina has complied with the problem. However, the IMF has not complied with the countries that pay the cost of the conflict with its economy. The official told local media that Alberto Fernandez's administration renegotiated a loan of approximately $44 billion. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Social movements in El Salvador marched on Sunday, January 15th, to commemorate the country's 1992 peace accords and denounce the current government's policies. 31 years after the signing of the peace accords in the country, popular and political groups as well as women's, teachers, trade unionists, and religious organizations of El Salvador marched as one unified front for peace in the nation and in rejection of corruption and authoritarianism. Protesters denounced that arbitrary detention have become more and more common since the implementation of the exception regime in March 2022, which has led to over 60,000 imprisonments. Marching from the central Cuscatlan Park to the city's civic square, Salvadorans reject the systematic violation of human rights, political persecution, and the establishment of a dictatorial regime in the country, in reference to Bukele's administration. In the Dominican Republic, the Ministry of Public Health reported Sunday an increase in the number of cholera cases in the country, with 2 new cases bringing the total to 19, 5 of which are imported. In a press release, the Vice Ministry of Collective Health and its General Directorate of Epidemiology said that the new patients are two men of Haitian nationality, aged 26 and 9 years respectively, both residents of a community in the municipality of Panica, Elias Piña province. The information specified that the patients were admitted between January 12th and 13th. Epidemiological surveillance is being maintained with close relatives, in addition to a permanent intervention in the areas to detect, prevent, and investigate any suspected case. The ministry urges the population not to be alarmed and to remain attentive to the reports issued. In Spain, thousands of healthcare workers returned to the streets of Madrid on Sunday to protest against the dismantling of public health care by the conservative regional government of Isabel Ayuso. With posters that read SOS Public Health and Stop Privatization, demonstrators departed from the Ministry of Health in Madrid and marched towards the Queen Sofia Museum Square. They condemned the shortage of personnel and criticized what they considered to be a favoritism shown by regional authorities towards private healthcare providers. In this regard, they demand better working conditions to avoid overloaded care that hinders the provision of primary care to the people. In Portugal, public school workers marched this Saturday in Lisbon to demand better salaries, higher budget for education, and to protest against student selection process. The demonstrators were summoned by Portugal's Union of All Professionals to the Central Marques de Pombal Square. According to the complaints, the march demanded the resignation of Education Minister João Costa. Protesters also requested that Socialist Antonio Costa's government listen to their demands after almost 20 years of delays in improvements. Educators have scheduled a meeting with the Education Minister on January 20th to discuss the future of public education in the country. The Royal College of Nursing, Britain's largest nurses union, will stage a new day of strikes in February if there is no progress in talks with the government. The union said on Saturday that in this case, the number of staff taking part in the measure will be twice as high. Salary disputes have intensified amidst the rising cost of living in the country. The union demands a salary increase equivalent to inflation plus 5% to avoid an exodus of National Health Service personnel. On December 15th and the 20th, the country's nurses held two massive strikes, and the unions estimated that some 100,000 people participated. On Saturday, German police violently suppressed a demonstration against the expansion of an open-pit coal mine in Lutzerat in the western region of the country. The march had been organized in support of the activists occupying the abandoned site. Hundreds of anti-coal demonstrators tried to enter forbidden areas of the lignite mine when clashes broke out between protesters and security forces. Dozens of injuries were reported among demonstrators due to dog bites and water cannons. At least 20 activists were taken to the hospital. Mexico's National Center for Disaster Prevention issued an alert due to the increased activity of Popocatépetl volcano. In the last 24 hours, the activity of one of the 6 volcanoes identified as high risk has increased, reporting 214 exhalations resulting in ash and 2 explosions followed by steam and volcanic gases. Therefore, the Prevention Center called on citizens not to stay near the crater area due to the danger posed by falling volcanic fragments. Meanwhile, the General Coordination of Civil Protection announced that people should be watchful of their instructions since ashfall is expected in the next few hours in Puebla and Tlaxcala states. In the United States, the death toll rose to 9 after several tornadoes hit the southeastern part of the country. Authorities reported that the most affected states were Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. Efforts to find people trapped under the devastated area continue in the region. Weather reports forecast more tornadoes, and a state of alert has been declared to protect some 35 million citizens. Meanwhile, the government of Joe Biden approved a disaster declaration for the state of California, which has also felt the disastrous effects of the severe storm. In the Philippines, authorities rose the death toll following floods in 42 provinces of the country to 27. The National Risk Reduction and Management Council added that 11 people were injured and 3 others are still missing. Floods affected more than 614,000 people, displacing over 112,000 of them. More than 1,200 houses, 155 infrastructures, and 13 hectares of agricultural land were also damaged. The government declared a state of calamity in 31 cities and municipalities, many of which are still without power. And we have more news coming up after a short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Russian President Vladimir Putin declared that the performance of the country's economy has exceeded the government's expectations. The Russian president said to the press that the economy is more stable than the forecast had predicted, not only that of his opponents but also of his own specialists. Putin assured that the country's inflation rate has a satisfactory trend and that unemployment remains at an all-time low. The head of state added that the national inflation could decrease from 11.9% to 5% during the current year and congratulated the military for their performance during the special military operation in the Donbas region since February 24, 2022. The Russian Defense Ministry denounced in a press release Saturday that Ukraine is preparing a large-scale provocation with the objective to frame Moscow. According to the statement, the provocation seeks to discredit Moscow's actions within the framework of the grain agreement, accusing Russia of creating a food shortage. The declaration states that Ukrainians are allegedly undermining a grain warehouse in the Kharkov region. The Russian Defense Ministry concluded that Kiev is trying to put pressure on the West of public opinion with such high-profile provocations in order to guarantee new large-scale supplies of modern weapons and military equipment for its armed forces. In Russia, authorities fully resumed transit on the Crimean Bridge after the terrorist attack committed in October 2022. Local authorities reported the resumption of the movement of cars and buses on the bridge, which had been suspended for repair and reconstruction works previously. On October 8th, a truck exploded while crossing the bridge, causing the death of 4 citizens and the burning of 7 train tank cars. The Russian Federal Security Service reported that 12 people were behind the incident, including the head of the Central Intelligence Directorate of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. China launched a Long March 2D rocket from the Taiyuan Satellite Launch Center in the northern province of Jiangxi, sending 14 new satellites into space. This was the 462nd flight mission using the Long March rocket series. The satellites, including Kilu 2 and Kilu 3, have entered their planned orbits. These consist of optical satellites, one high resolution and one wideband, both with payloads of optical imaging devices for Earth observation. The mission will provide the eastern Chinese province of Shandong with remote sensing services for land surveys, agriculture, forestry, environmental protection, as well as disaster prevention and reduction. In China, an explosion and a subsequent fire was reported on Sunday at a chemical plant in the province of Liaoning, leaving several workers injured. According to preliminary reports, the blaze occurred during scheduled maintenance work. Local authorities said that several workers were injured and were taken for medical attention. Search and rescue efforts for other possible victims are underway. Authorities are still investigating the causes of the accident. In Nepal, the civil aviation authorities announced that at least 68 were killed after a local passenger plane with 72 people on board crashed in the Pokhara region. The fire on the plane has been put out as a search and rescue operation involving Nepali soldiers and police officers continues. The aviation authority added that the ill-fated ATR-72 plane from Yeti Airlines took off from Kathmandu for Pokhara at 10:30 a.m. local time and it lost contact at 10:50 a.m. 3 people were rescued from the crashed plane and sent to hospital, said Guru Datta Dakal, Assistant Chief District Officer of Kaski District, where Pokhara is located. On Sunday, the Palestinian Health Ministry reported that Israeli security forces killed a Palestinian man in the West Bank. Ahmed Hassan Abdul Jalil Kala, aged 45 years old, was shot in the neck with live ammunition near Silwat. Witnesses quoted by Wafa said the shooting was preceded by an argument between the man and Israeli soldiers who forced him to get out of his vehicle before shooting him at point blank. The victim is the fourth Palestinian killed this week by Israeli forces and the 13th so far in 2023. In Israel, thousands take to the streets to protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. According to local media, the protests were called by the Black Flags movement in Tel Aviv. Demonstrators rejected the judicial reform initiative presented by Netanyahu. These protests took place in several cities throughout the country. Sources point out that this will be the largest mobilization ever recorded against the current Israeli government.
The Israeli government should understand that it does have a mandate to destroy the Israeli democracy. That the fact that they are trying to destroy the checks and balances of the Israeli democracy, this will not work. And we will fight to the very last minute to save the Israeli democracy.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.